Hello, everyone, and welcome to our workshop today. We're doing the machine learning models. And usually we use them, but it's also fun to train one. So I'm super excited to hear about this workshop today. You see on the screen the bit.ly for our slideshow. So if you want the slide deck, bit.ly/22MAR25PD, this is where you can get access to the slide deck, and we're going to show this at the end as well. So if you need to download the slide deck, you have access to all the information. So I'm Dominic Tremblay, and I'll be your MC today. So I'm going to be the one in the background looking at the chat, make sure I answer all of the questions, or I tell Chris when we have a question. So I was a teacher for 13 years in a small French school in Trenton, at Air Force Base Trenton. And for the last 15 years, I've been traveling across Canada to deliver a workshop. And I'm going to let Chris introduce himself from beautiful Brockville.
Thanks, Dominic, and good afternoon, everybody. My name's Chris Stewart, and yes, I am from Brockville, Ontario. This is my 23rd year in K-12 education. Started out as a secondary math teacher, did some coaching or consulting in the mathematics realm, and now I am a tech-enabled learning and teaching contact in my school board, the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario. So excited to be here, excited to share this presentation. So yeah, let's get into things. So I thought we could start with a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to let you know that I am joining today from Brockville, Ontario, which is on the traditional and treaty lands of the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, which are part of Crawford's purchases of 1783. That agreement was made to provide land for the United Empire Loyalists and their Indigenous allies following the American Revolution, which has shaped and continues to shape the histories and relationships that we navigate today. As we gather in this virtual space to explore machine learning, generative AI, and coding applications, it's important that we recognize that technology, like land, is not neutral. The ways in which knowledge is created, shared, and used have long been shaped by colonial systems. As we engage in learning today, I encourage us all to reflect on the responsibilities we carry to ensure that innovation is inclusive, ethical, and grounded in principles of respect and reciprocity. Spring is a time of renewal, and it's a reminder that growth is continuous. So in that spirit, I myself remain committed to learning from Indigenous perspectives on technology, data sovereignty, and knowledge sharing, and seeking ways that digital spaces can amplify rather than erase diverse ways of knowing. So I invite you, wherever you are joining from today, to reflect on the lands that you occupy, the histories they hold, and how we can collectively work toward reconciliation in both physical and digital spaces. So miigwech niwa, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I also want to mention that this workshop is provided by Logix Academy. So you can visit their website, logixacademy.com, or follow us on social media at Logix Academy. And we have many sponsors and partners for today. As you can see, Logix Academy provides workshops for HackerGal, for Your Voices Power, Codingville.ca, Digital Moment, and First Canada. And all of these are made possible to the funding of CanCode. So thank you very much, CanCode. And now off to you, Chris, because I can't wait to learn about machine learning models.
That's perfect. Perfect. So yeah, let's launch into things here. So I guess to preface everything, I do have to let you know that this particular presentation is something that I have done within my own practice. So that as a tech coach within our district is to bring this in actually as a lesson for students in the junior grades. So roughly grades 5, grade 6 is kind of a nice entry point with this topic. So anything you see today, here today, if you download the slides, anything that's within that really has been something that I use to guide my interactions and how I facilitate learning with teachers and the students in their classroom. So maybe look at it through that particular lens as we move forward today. So Dom, let's head to the next slide and we'll just give a quick breakdown of what this afternoon will look like. So It would be fun. I think it'll be fun to start with a little poll, nothing too complicated. We'll do a little backgrounder on some aspects of AI. I know we've heard about it. We're all probably using different aspects of it in some way in our practices, but we'll break that down, much like we might want to help break it down with our students. We'll get into training a machine learning model, and I know that sounds probably a little a little wild, perhaps a little scary at first, but trust me. The website we'll be going to today is fantastic, and it's built out in such a great way for both educators and students. So we'll have fun with that. We'll share some resources, take some questions, and would love, absolutely love your feedback on the session and all of the sessions for that matter. If you're attending more than one here today, that would be great. So, Dom, let's move ahead to the next slide. And we'll just take a moment to pause and do a quick little poll. So I am curious as a presenter, kind of where your background or experiences are with these particular terms, right? Machine learning, generative AI or Gen AI, and then coding. Okay. So, with your teacher hat on, kind of thinking about what those terms mean to you, how you may have seen or heard or used them within your own practice. I'm not talking from a developer's standpoint, right? That's not what this is about. This is about using technology in the classroom. So you'll look along the scale. If you're new to these concepts, that's a 1. If you're an expert, then a 10. And you'll notice maybe a 3-number code. If you could maybe put a few of those into the chat, and that'll let us know where you're at. Or more comfortably, if you'd rather share an anecdote rather than a score of some kind, you're more than welcome to. But anything you can tell us about those 3 terms would be fantastic.
So it looks like people are also asking about the slides. So if you're
Mhm.
asking about the slides, we will put the URL, the bit.ly, in a few seconds, so you will see that. And if you want to take some time to answer this question, um, to me, I have to say, while we wait for our participants to put their answer, I'm always super interested in how machine learnings can make cars self-drive. So it's super interesting to see how they taught cars how to drive with other drivers, which sometimes
Mhm.
may be scary because it doesn't mean that all the drivers in the world are the perfect driver. But it's interesting, instead of coding each car to do every single possible scenario to use
Right.
machine learning. We have Randy that says 5, 7, and 9 would be
Okay.
their rating. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And that's all the answers we have for now, Chris.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, I mean, I myself with machine learning, really when I think about when AI sort of entered in and became more popular or is becoming more popular in education, that sort of forced me and I imagine every one of us to kind of dig in and learn a little bit more about it. So, I mean, I'm new, continuing to be new in some aspects to machine learning, Gen AI, and coding, much like the audience. So, just thought I'd put that out there as well. Well, why don't we head to the next slide, Tom, and we'll see what's up next. Okay, so just with my teacher hat on and sort of a presentation format, entering a classroom, facilitating learning with or co-teaching with someone else. Usually I'll ask, students what their experiences are or what they think AI is, and we have a conversation, and I'm always taken aback in a very good way by the responses that they provide. And usually it anchors into computers doing something for us or doing some of the thinking for us. And then I like to kind of enter in and provide some examples and make connections with them and have them make connections to the technologies they're using, that their families are using. So it's always a great kind of a mind's on or introduction. You'll see a few examples of different types of AI. So classified as reactive, predictive, and generative. And of course, many of those technologies you are aware of, and we use them almost every day. Okay. Let's move forward a bit there, Dom. So machine learning. Kind of when work in the classroom space, I'm trying to also, through engagement and to give I don't want to call it a simple example, but something that's accessible for students to try and to set the stage for just what exactly is machine learning. I find that this website is absolutely fantastic, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's called Quick Draw. Okay. So maybe in the chat, if you have used or know of Quick Draw, maybe just let us know. We can maybe look to do a quick demo with you. Um, but just to see if there's any feedback in the chat.
Not yet, but I just want to
Okay.
mention I put the link to your PowerPoint. So we have Mr. Madison that has used that. So
Okay, perfect. Oh, that's absolutely perfect. So maybe what we'll do is if you've used it, we'll forego that particular experience, but I wanted you to know that this is something that I would use to help sort of introduce and guide the conversation around what, machine learning means or could mean. Okay.
and,
So the
and
hows are
Randy also mentioned that he's just played around with a little bit with it. So
okay, perfect.
tons of
Yeah.
experience.
So, I mean, the nuts and bolts of it essentially is the how. Really, with students, they're showing the computer examples of what we wanted to learn just through a number of sketches. And globally, this particular model is collecting, right, user information or user sketches and compiling that data and formulating, um, you know, uh, a predictive model as to what these objects are. So I'm always blown away by it every time I use it, and certainly a lot of fun. What students I think really benefit from knowing, can we just go back one slide there, Dom? From knowing is that, especially when we get to coding, if scenarios are extremely complex, and Dom, you mentioned self-driving cars, with these technologies, they're so complex, it can be very challenging and difficult to understand how that needs to be coded. So it's interesting how these models can be used to generate those codes that we need for users to use on their end. Let's have a look at the next slide. So then we sort of enter into conversation around generative AI. And one great example I love using with students is that of Magic Media in Canva or any of the AI or Gen AI infused tools within the Canva environment. You can see there was a prompt that I had used in the past regarding kind of hybridizing two animals together. And we've got the combination of a giraffe and a lion together, and kids always get they're so they get so excited when they see that example pop up, and they're off to the races and they're trying to generate their own cool looking creations or creatures. So once we experience that together, then we kind of back up and take a look at the differences between ML or machine learning and Gen AI. And you can see the examples there on the screen. Mainly the difference being, right, machine learning is using, classifying, and identifying, whereas Gen AI is entirely on the creation side, but requires machine learning in order to do the generation that it does. So it sets a nice foundation for students. Let's move ahead there, Dom, and we'll see what's up next. And then lastly, before we move into training models, just a quick little visual to help students understand the relationship between the two. It's a very simplified diagram, but I find it does help to pull the two together visually. So I think we are almost ready to dive into doing some training, but I do want to let you know that sort of the anchor or the resource that I've anchored much into for this particular presentation, and then the facilitation I do in classrooms relates to this book here, Machine Learning for Kids. It'd be interesting to know in the chat if you have heard of it, and if so, maybe what your thoughts are on it as a teacher guide or as a resource for bringing machine learning into the classroom space. I'll just say a little bit more about it while the chat is being used. So there's also a website that's been developed by the author and of course his team. And that's exactly where we're going to go today, is to try to train a model. And many great examples are found within this resource. So I do highly recommend it if ML is new to you or new in the classroom space. And again, starting in the elementary grades and working your way up, this book was a bit of a game changer for me. Any activity, Dom, in the chat?
Yeah. So it
Oh,
looks like
great.
people are asking, what is the targeted age group for that book?
For this book here, um,
Yeah.
in terms of my own context, and I can only speak for me, I don't know what the publisher has mentioned in terms of, or the author. Uh, but as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, I've gone into grade 5, 6 classrooms, and there are varying levels of complexity with the projects that are there. So if you were to start early on in the book and kind of work your way along, you'll see the level of complexity change. All of the coding is done in Scratch. So if you know your learner's readiness and what it is that you'd like to accomplish with them through coding, many of the projects are accessible. Okay. Well, if no further comment in the chat, please continue using it as you develop insights, as things come to mind. And yeah, we'll have some fun with our conversation. So now we're going to get into the business of teaching a computer to sort photos. And that's kind of how I frame it. In fact, we can teach computers to do just about anything. Um, so we'll take you on a tour of that website. We're not going to come back to the slide deck for a little while. That is closer to the end of the session. And I'm going to flip over to just working through different tabs that I have open on my computer. But the bit link that is there on the screen, an added bit link that would take you directly to the website that we're using today. And of course, if all else fails, just Google machine learning for kids, and that'll, the first hit will be the site that you need to get to.
And I just
Okay,
put that bit.ly link in the chat. So if you need that access, it's in the chat as well.
that's perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize my screen. So Don, please let me know if anything comes up. Okay. All right, let's
So
see
now
here.
we can see your tabs, Chris. So it's all
Okay.
good.
Perfect. Much appreciated. Okay, so this is the landing page for the Machine Learning for Kids website. It is a UK-based company, just to let you know where this was developed. So when you arrive here, first thing we'll do, okay, is click on Get Started. Okay. And what it's going to do, it's going to ask you, first time here, are you registered? And what I did first time in was I avoided all of that and I just tried it, right? Because I wanted to know just exactly what am I getting into when I do this. Okay. So if you click on try it now, okay. So we're going to start by adding a new project. So let's go ahead and do that. So project name. And so what we're going to get into is something called car or a cup. So we're going to sort through different images, those that represent cars, those that represent cups. Sounds a little bit whimsical, so it is quite fun. Project type. Okay, so you'll notice that there will be different types of projects that you can engage in yourself and your students. So teaching computers to recognize text, images, numbers, sound. There's so much there. There are prediction models. Even there's a beta version for generating text. I haven't tried that out, but that would be quite interesting. So we're going to go with recognizing images. Okay, keep on scrolling. Now the storage type. Okay, so what it's going to ask you to do is, do you want the model to be stored in your web browser or in the cloud? Either or is fine. But what you'll read later on, if you explore the site a little bit further, is that certain projects require certain amount of space. So those that are left in the cloud will likely reside there a bit longer. Those models don't live there for very long, for a matter of a few hours, but when you create a login, you'll have access to the models for a little bit longer. So I'm just going to go with the web browser for now. Okay, then I'll click on create. So our model is ready to be trained. So I'm going to click on that tab. So there are 3 steps to the process. So first step is to train the model. So that's where we're going to go to the internet and grab examples or images of cars and cups, and we're going to load them up. And then we're going to ask the computer to go through a training process or a learning process. And then we'll make code in Scratch that we can use externally that is outside of this website. So when I click on train, okay, it's going to ask us to add a label. So the label, of course, first one being car, just add that. So we've got this bin or bucket, if you will, and we'll add one in for cup. Whoops. There we go. We'll add that in. Okay. And then what we do is we go out into the internet and we grab photos. Okay. So specifically, the website asks for PNG and or JPEG files. So if a photo doesn't meet the criteria necessary, a pop-up will appear at the top of the screen, and you just have to go back in and find other ones. One thing I've noticed with this website is that I tried downloading images ahead of time, but it won't accept images uploaded. So you have to pull them in off the internet. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Because in the interest of time, it does take a little while to go and grab those photos. So the next step would be to learn and test the model. So what I'll do is I'm going to log in. Okay, I'm currently logged in. So I'm going to go to my own projects that I've got set up. Oh, just one moment here. Let me try this again. It looks like, here we go. No, I do need to log in. You just give me one moment. Apologize for that. We'll get in here. Okay, perfect. So you'll notice that I do have an admin page and a project-based page, which is different than when you first arrive at the site. I opted to create an account because I knew that if I was going into different classrooms and I wanted teachers and students to have access, I'm able to assign them a fictitious username, and then they're able to engage and use the website themselves. So I really needed that for my role. It's not a requirement, but if it's something you think you're going to use quite often, then I would recommend it. And it's quite easy to do so. You reach out to the administrator for the website with some basic info, your name, email, the number of students you have, the reason why you want an account. And that's really all that's required to get started. Okay, so here I am. I'm in a saved project. Okay, but I want you to know that the model itself, again, after several hours or perhaps days, depending on the type of account you have, will reset. Now, you don't lose the information you've loaded in. So all my images are there. But what I'm going to have to do, okay, so I've dragged and dropped them in off the internet, is I now have to go back and retrain that. So I'm going to have it learn the difference between cars and cups. So it's telling me here, right, what I've done is I've collected 10 examples of each, which is a bare minimum. The more you collect, the better the predictive or the recognition of that model. And you'll notice that I had been training the model earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it currently. I want to show you that if I regenerate that, that you can still use it. So let's train this model. We'll track its progress here with the status. Usually it's fairly quick. Again, it's dependent upon the project. Of course, our connection. We've got a lot happening here when we're live streaming presentations, so it may slow your computer down a little bit. Okay, perfect. All right, so the learning phase is complete. Now, before we go ahead and start using it in Scratch, what we should do is do a little testing. Okay, so you can test it with your webcam by holding up an image. You can hand sketch, which I'm not going to recommend, given that we actually provided the model real world photos. So I'm going to go out into the internet, and I did a little searching already, looking for cars. Okay, so just a general search for cars. So here's a lovely vehicle here. So I'm going to just right click. I'm going to grab the link to that image.
So,
And I'm
Chris, we
going to,
have a question.
oh,
Someone says
yes.
that they missed the part how to load the photos in the model, load the images.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Okay. So what we can do is, let's see here. Let me go back for a moment. So that's in the training area. So what I'm going to try to do is the following. Let me go to that tab here. And let me see if I can bring that image. Okay, so you can see the image, right? I'm dragging it over off the net. The box is now surrounded with this dashed line. I'm going to release my mouse, and you'll notice that the new vehicle, so I've added an 11th vehicle to the car bin. So it's, yeah, it's just go out into the net, find relevant photos, click and drag them right in. So hopefully that helps. Please let me know if that's okay. I'm just going to pause for a second. I just want to make sure that's all right. Any feedback, Dom? Are we okay?
I think we're okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's just a drag and drop. You don't need to click
Drag.
upload.
Yeah, drag and drop.
Can
No.
you train the model using your webcam?
I believe you can. I have not tried it before.
Okay.
And maybe because we're in a
Oh
session
yeah, I
now.
do. Yeah, but I do see the webcam icon. So
And you can
yeah.
also draw. Okay, so again, there's different ways for students and us, all of us, to have access to providing information to train the model. So it's pretty neat stuff. Now, because we have an 11th entry, I need to go back to the project, and I do have to ask the computer to learn again, just because we've added that extra piece of data. So I'm going to delete the old model, and I'm going to retrain the model. And we'll let it process. And then what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of testing to make sure that we're okay with it. And what I mean by that is, what is the level of confidence that the computer has in identifying the objects themselves? Okay, there, we're all trained up. Now, I think I still have the URL for that image that I took off the internet. So I'm just going to paste that in here. Okay, as you can see it, I'm going to test it. Now it's asking me to wait. It's trying to recognize it. So with 100% confidence, it feels quite good that it has identified the car as a car. Now let's try to fool the model. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. And this time, what I'm going to do is I've done a search for boats. So I was trying to think, maybe the boat, because of its height, might, trick it into thinking it's a cup. So I'm going to right click on that image link, copy it. I'm going to bring that in here. I'm going to paste it. And I'm curious here to see what happens. So let's test that. Trying to recognize it. Okay. Ah, so I had anticipated, because of the height of a cup, that it might think those were its only two options. So it's only 65% confident that it is a cup. So it just kind of gives you a sense of how much data and what kind of data you're feeding into the model in order to get the confidence levels that you're going to want. If you're looking for precision and accuracy, you'll definitely need to train your models well. So now what we'll do is we'll head back to the project, and the last stage is to make, okay, which means that When you click on that, you've got a variety of different applications that this will open up into. Okay, so you've got block coding with Scratch 3. Scratch 3 is a specialized version of Scratch, which is entirely web-based and developed for this website. If you're into text-based coding, perhaps with some intermediate or senior students, that could be used, or App Inventor as well. So I'm going to click on Scratch 3. Okay, so here it gives you a breakdown of what you're going to see. This website is actually going to generate these new blocks. Okay, and the blocks represent or contain the model that has just been trained. And that's why we're able to bring it into Scratch. You can see an image here on the right-hand side. Customarily it looks like Scratch, and it is. So we're going to go there now. I'm going to open this project up. Give it some time to load. Perfect. Okay, so it looks really no different than what you may be accustomed to if you have coded with Scratch before. The big difference, though, if we scroll through the menu here, is we now have a couple extra menus. Okay, we have images. Okay, so we now have these new blocks here that relate to the images that we were using. And then we have these machine learning blocks. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So what we're going to do in the interest of time, okay, we could, with our students, model some coding here, right, from scratch with a blank coding area and kind of build it together. But what's really neat and helpful is this menu here, known as Project Templates. When we click into that, so what's been done is many of the projects that are available, and I'll just scroll through because the names they're quite interesting, and they convey an essence of fun, that these are things that you'd want to try to do. Okay, just gives you some great ideas of what's already there, and there's a lot of stuff there. But we do have one pre-made for car or cup, so I'm going to click on that. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons why I would want to use the pre-made model. So if I'm new to it, or if I'm new to coding, then I may need some support, and having this an example is important. But also it depends on the focus. So if the focus is on getting this model to work, then we may be able to move past some of the coding and then focus more on, just bits and pieces of it. I would always encourage, educators and students to read through the code that's there, see if we can understand what's happening or why it's there to begin with, and then we'll kind of move forward. Just very quickly, I'll let you know, based on my own understanding of what's happening with this template. So when you do click the green flag, okay, so any image that might already be on the screen will be hidden, so much like a reset. The Y position, so a variable for a Y coordinate has been created, and it's being set to 152. It seems a bit random, but that's close to the top of the stage. Okay, and then the item number. So the item number relates to some photos. So I'm going to go into the costumes, and you'll notice that, and this would be done ahead of time, that if you were building a project or your students were, you would have to provide it with some sample photos. Okay, so there are cars and cups here. Specifically, there are 23 mystery photos already set as costumes. Okay, that's what we'll use to test. So by reset, we'll set the item number to 0. And then we have a broadcasting type of message from our events menu here. So we're going to broadcast this message about creating a clone. So the message is received here with this next stack of code, and the item number goes to item number 1. Again, over in the costumes, you can see it's going to start with this particular car here. Then we enter into some conditional statements. So long as we haven't reached all 23 items, this program or code will run until all photos have been exhausted. It'll switch from one item to the next, show up on the screen. There is, this is actually quite helpful, the layering block that ensures that any subsequent photos happen to be in the front layer, right, of the display. They'll start off in the middle of the screen, right, at the origin. And then what we're missing now, and this is where we can kind of break out into some more deep conversation with our students about what are we going to do? How are we going to get this sorting to actually happen? We have to realize that we're not testing anything at this point. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the bottom 3 blocks out for now. Okay. Because really, this glide block, we want the cars and the cups to glide to their respective categories or positions in the coding area, right? In terms of classification. But we need to, tell the computer what it needs to do. So I'm going to go to the event space and, the control. Yes, here we are. I'm going to grab an if block. Okay, if else block. Let's snap that into place. Now, Dom, I realize I'm doing a lot of talking here on the back end, just sort of modeling a little bit. I'm just curious to know if there's anything coming up, like in the chat or anything that that I should be addressing.
I think it's good so far. I don't see any new comments or questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to add an operator into place. Right, that becomes the condition we're going to test with that block. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move into our car or cup. Okay, so the first block here is recognize image. So I'm going to bring that out. That's going to be set to the left-hand side. Okay, let me make that a bit smaller here so we can see. There we go, that's better. So on the right-hand side, what we're going to do is choose either car or cup. So in this case, I'm just going to grab car, set it equal here. And then in terms of image, so I'm going to go into my image menu and we're going to select costume image, right? Because we want it to look at the 23 costume images that were shown earlier of the cars and the cups. It's going to compare it to its knowledge of what happens to be a car or cup, and then it's going to make a decision. Okay, so if it is a car, let me break this apart here. What we're going to do is we're going to have all the cars glide to a particular position on the stage here. Okay, so in terms of X, why not put the cars? We'll put them on the left-hand side of the screen. So we're going to go in and have it use sort of a random range of blocks. Let's see, my pick random. Here it is. Snap that in for X. And we'll give it a particular range. So the extreme left. So if we went with something around minus 200 or 210, I'll just put in minus 200. And then over to negative 100 in terms of X. And notice the Y position is already predefined. And that's back here. I'll scroll up a bit. Predefined as being at the top of the screen. So around 150. So if it's a car, it should glide to the left-hand side of the screen to this position here. Okay. Then what we'll have it do, as more photos are added, we certainly don't want them layered over top of each other because visually it's much more appealing to see how many of them are correctly, categorized as cars. So we'll just subtract a little bit from the Y position each time so it layers them, but all of them remain visible. Then we'll send the message to clone again, which is going to bring us back to the top of our code, and it's going to run again for the next item. The only thing we're missing is what to say about this here. So let's just tell the cups that they need to glide. So they're going to glide over to the right-hand side of the screen. So we'll just get our random block in here again. And let's flip that around. So on the positive x side, let's put it between 1 and 200. And we'll grab y as our variable. Oops. There we go. Put that into place. And we are ready to go. So I'm excited to see what happens. Just imagine a virtual drum roll here. I'll go full screen for this. Okay, so fingers crossed, green flag. Let's see what happens. Ah, okay, excellent. So far, so good. Feeling good. Cars are cars, cups are cups. And after all, 23 have been sorted. We can reset and then try it again.
So someone is
Perfect.
asking, do you have a link to that Scratch project? Because it was a little bit too fast to recreate at the same time as you.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. So the best thing to do, if you are trying to create this particular project, so in the project templates, so if you're on the Scratch 3.0 site, directly linked out of machine learning, or if you Google Scratch 3.0, it'll take you here. And under, let me go back one more time. So when you're, the project templates is the fastest, easiest way to find that base template. So the only thing you would be missing, I guess, if you wanted further instruction or steps, let me go back to Scratch here for a moment. Whoops, there we go. Would be in the slide deck that was shared. So the very first bit link that was shared out this afternoon, the full code is there. So I copied it and I dropped it into the slide deck. So you'll see all of the relevant blocks that are there. So I hope that's okay and helpful. Please let me know otherwise if you're looking for a little bit more information, and we'll see if we can't help you out with that. So I'm just going to pause for a moment, just make sure that things are great out there.
Yeah, Randy is mentioning that he cannot find the car or cup template.
Okay.
And that has to be in the special version of Scratch that is included on this
Right.
website.
Yeah. Now, for instance, if I were to
Oh,
open it.
okay. Randy just found it, so that's
Oh, good.
good. I do have a question. Can you have more than 2 categories
Yes, you can.
when you
I
train
have
the model?
I haven't gotten to the point where I've been able to dabble with it, but absolutely. So if we went back to the machine learning site, right? I'm going to go back to the project. Now, when you're training, notice that I have my 2 existing categories. I could add a new label. So if I want to throw something in there, right, I could put in as many categories as I like and therefore have it sort, different types of images. And again, this is only but one use of many uses of the website. You could have a language focus if you like. So, focus on word recognition, that type of thing. So the possibilities are really endless as to what you can do with the website. But looking at our time, it's almost quarter to 2. So I think what we can do for now, and of course, please continue tinkering in the background, asking questions, sharing insights in the chat, and we'll definitely attend to those. So Dom, can we head back to the slide deck just for a little
Yeah.
while, please?
Yeah. You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Now I can see myself again on camera, which is great. It's been a while since. So as mentioned, if you wanted sort of the step by step in terms of what blocks were used, there's a screen capture or an image of it. And what you're also going to notice is if you spend more time on the Machine Learning for Kids site, there are teacher resources and student resources. So in the form of PDF downloads. So if you're looking for a little background or as an educator, it's there. If you want kind of a guide or steps where your students can move through it, right, step by step, that's there as a support. So what you see, what I've coded here, if I wasn't sure, I can go to that and have a look at the completed code and go and tinker and try it for myself, and extend from there. Let's have a look at the next slide, Dom. Okay, so the rest of the presentation today is me as, a facilitator, going into classrooms, modeling, teaching lessons. So this is more, my thinking for you. These might be some sample discussion points, right? As you're consolidating the different experiences that you're having with students. So, for instance, right, if the model's working, what should it be doing? Um, you know, how can students tell if the model's working correctly? So they're going to know, obviously, if pictures are being sorted confidently. But you notice that on the machine learning site, there was a confidence score. And also when you code, there is a confidence coding block. So you could actually sort photos on the basis of confidence as well. So that opens up more opportunity there. Improvements, absolutely. Any model can be improved, even though this one worked very, very well. Dom, you had mentioned bringing in a third category, perhaps bringing in more, right? So students could say, well, why don't we sort? Let's get more granular. Let's not just any cup, but let's, sort specific types, right? Let's really make it more specific. So the more data you provide, the better the model gets. Okay. So those are just some sample discussion points to help kind of bring closure to a series of lessons. And on the next slide, what I've done is I've provided some sample goals or perhaps success criteria. So I know that in the province of Ontario, many of our lessons sort of begin, and then when we consolidate, we try to build some criteria with our students. So some sample goals would be knowing the differences between machine learning and AI, and of course, how they're going to go about training. And on the right-hand side, you can see what I think or would hope would come out of some artful questioning and then conversation with students after the activity to see if we can't build those criteria, but more student based within their language. But these are just some ideas I thought I would share about how to wrap up a particular lesson. And then on the next slide, I think we're really getting close to the end of our time today. Maybe some next steps, maybe for us, maybe for your students, if you wanted them to have a little more practice. Again, I'm making reference to the book. If you've got the book, I did discover it is freely available on Google Books. So if you're looking for it, but of course, purchase as well. So that's an option. Another option could be just having them create their own, right? So come up with your own example, your own prompts, decide what it is that you want to do. What words do you want it to sort? What images do you want it to sort? So that's a lot of fun. And then I guess on the next slide, that's going to kind of bring us close to, we're kind of at the stage where, if you've got further questions, comments, we'd love your feedback. We'll get that out to you in just a moment. But maybe we'll take a pause and see if there are any additional questions or comments.
I see a lot of connection also with like the science curriculum. Use for biodiversity grade 6, where students would teach a model, the different varieties of a plant, and get the machine learning to recognize those varieties.
Absolutely.
Or use it when we do trash sorting, being able to recognize the things that are recyclable and the different categories of recycling, and showing to
Absolutely.
the webcam and getting the model so well trained that it can recognize a can from a plastic
Mhm.
containers, from compost.
I agree. And you're reminding me of a conversation I had with one of my colleagues. And this wasn't all too long ago. And it was about science. And I mentioned, what would you like me to focus on? And they had an interest with AI. And I said, well, what subject area are you working in? And well, they said sciences. And they were working with students in grade 5 and 6. And I thought, well, why don't we focus on something whereby we are able to? I think it was around the topic of sustainable energy sources, and renewable, non-renewable. And as soon as that terminology came to the forefront, I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's a classification. We could train, right, the computer model to go about sorting these resources. And on top of that, imagine having, you have older students. How powerful or interesting would it be for both the students and younger students to maybe teach others about different aspects? So renewable versus non-renewable is just one small example, um, but be quite engaging for students of all ages.
So I'm going to put that link again in the chat
Sure.
if you want to access the presentation.
And I think if there are any teachers from Ontario on with us today, much like Dom and myself, I know that specifically it's either grade 7 or grade 8, there is explicit mention of AI, or understanding the impact of AI and various technologies on everyday life. So there's certainly a great tie in many ways, but certainly directly and explicitly in the intermediate grades.
Yeah, and the new science curriculum in Ontario also says emerging technologies.
Hmm.
Uh, so obviously, AI and machine learning are emerging technologies. So that's a great way also
Absolutely.
to integrate there. I do like the fact that they didn't list emerging technologies, because those curriculum are usually good for 10, 12 years. So by the
Right.
time you each event of the cycle, the emerging technologies sound a little bit old. I remember our old science curriculum where it says students will know how to use a CD-ROM and a DVD-ROM. It was a
Yes, yes, I do remember.
curriculum was written, but not in 2000 and in 2020 or 2021.
Mhm.
Yeah, what I like with what you've done is to go from a students who are consumer of technology to a students who are creator of technology.
Yeah. Oh, same here. Um, if at all possible, as much as possible, is to have students see themselves as creators. Nothing lights up a classroom more than students who are excited to build and to create things. So this is just another great way to engage them in a great use, an appropriate use of technology, um, and to learn.
So we have a teacher from Oregon that
Okay.
says they're just working on their guideline for the use of AI in the classrooms.
Right, and we are too in my own district. Starting with high level documents, and then refining that for more teacher use and student guidelines as well.
So I don't see any more questions or comments.
Okay.
Thank you so much for all of you who are here. If you have some times to fill out a feedback form, you will see the bit.ly Logix feedback. You can also put that in the chat, and you can also get some more information about Logix Academy by filling out or by going on our website as well. So you have all this information on the screen right now.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to put the link to the feedback form.
Hmm. Yeah, that is very helpful. That certainly helps inform the work that's being done. Comments are very much appreciated.
Okay, so you do have the link in the chat right now.
Okay.
So thank you very much for everyone who was here. If you don't have any more questions, we're going to put an end to the stream. But this is your last chance to ask your question in the chat if you do have questions. Yeah, so we do have on the site where you registered, you will have access to all of the streams for all of the workshops that we've delivered today. Thank you so much, Randy, for attending our workshops today and taking some time on a beautiful Saturday to do some professional learning. And also on our event workshop or our event part of the website, we often have some of those free events that are sponsored by our different sponsors. So if you want to attend some of free events, we also have co-taught events as well, where we go virtually in your classroom. You put us on the big screen in front of your classroom, and one of our facilitator will deliver an online workshop for your students. So we may have many of these events available. So make sure you visit logixacademy.com and you go in the event sections to learn more about our events. Well, thank you so much for being here, Chris, and sharing your great ideas with the crowd and all the resources that you've gathered to get students to know more about machine learning and AI.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Bye-bye.